Grown Up Group. This is a podcast of regular people tackling the world from a Black perspective. My name is Ty, and my visitor today is JoePro. Joe, thank you so much for joining me. I'm very excited to have you join. Why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Joe Pro. The handle is Joe Pro 973. 45-year-old black man from Newark, New Jersey, born and raised. My day trade is I'm a truck driver, so I'm a commercial driver. And by evenings I do content creation. So like I film uh like for other content creators, like if you need your vision brought to life, I can help you with that. I film music videos. I also film my own content on my YouTube page where I do interviews with interested people throughout the state of New Jersey.
I'm gonna make sure to add your handle so everybody knows how to reach out to you and how to follow you. Please like, share, and subscribe to Joe's podcast because he's doing phenomenal things. Any of our young Black entrepreneurs, we want to make sure we get behind them and support. And just like you follow Grown Up Group, you need to follow him as well. Excellent content out there. I've also watched a couple of videos, and I love your topics as well. So yes, let's delve into
Thank you
our
so
topic.
much.
No, no
Absolutely.
problem. No problem. So let's delve into our topic today. Our topic today is family dynamic. And what I want to discuss is Black men in the households because we see that this is a common thing that's so taboo in the Black community, even outside races and, ethnicities, make fun or kind of mock us for that. You always see the father go out for a pack of cigarettes and milk, and then, oh, did he come back type of scenarios or conversations,
Mhm.
little snippets of jokes that, they make. So I do have to ask you, did you grow up with your dad in your household?
So I grew up kind of like in a mixed family household because my birth father, he was not in the home. I grew up with my biological mom until like the age of 5, and then she was having her issues, and so I went to live with my cousin and his wife. So I
Mm.
know him ever since I was 5 years old as my dad. He was actually my cousin, but I did have a two-parent household from that regard.
Thank you. And such as myself, I'll even speak to my situation. I grew up with not my biological dad, but my stepdad, which was very much like a father to me. He's the only man that I known, and he is dad. I tell everybody, I'm like, I could call that man right now and just drop some jewels, and he'll give me some jewels back. He does not hold back. I do not hold back. We have a very open and honest relationship, of course. My younger years, it was not like that. I had that defiance. You can't tell me what to do, that teenage angst that we had, so we went through our little, trial and error, but we came around full circle. As a grown
Mhm.
woman, I appreciate and value him because I understand now as an adult, it's not easy to step into a household where you're the outsider and you're providing and paying the bills and all responsible for these people that are strangers to you, and then to love them as if they're your own. So I mean, yeah, I applaud him for that. I applaud a lot of Black dads that step into those situations, even your cousin that stepped into that situation, because it's not an easy task and you're taking on, a whole life. And for my stepdad, he took on two lives. So it was me and my sister at that
Yeah.
time. And he joined in. He joined in and he told us these are rules, regulations where we didn't have them before. And we went very much against
Yeah.
that because we were like, we'll do what we want.
Yeah, so y'all sort of rebelled a little bit, but like you said, having that structure and having somebody that's a strong man to step up and play that part, man, you can't thank him enough. Can't thank him
Yes,
enough.
absolutely. And I want to ask you now, do you think that Black fathers are needed in the Black household?
Yeah, I definitely think they are. There was a time where I think the role of black fathers in the black community was totally different. Black fathers weren't as hands-on as they are in today's day and age. But, myself and, my friend group and things of that nature, I know some black dads that are really stepping up. They're taking kids to doctor's appointments, they're cooking meals for kids, they're, taking these kids to practices and things of that nature. So I definitely believe that it takes two. A black dad and a black mom is very, very important.
Agree. I actually really agree with it. One of the things that I do have an issue with, and I know it's going to delve a little bit into the relationship dynamic, but I do have an interest in how do you co-parent and get the relationship to be mutual? Like it's usually when a man and a woman come together and they have this child, it then adds the
Hmm.
complexity of if we split and part ways, now either the burden of this raising this child is either dumped on the mother or the father. And I'm not going to say it's one way or the other, but that's the complexity, because now if I'm no longer with you, I feel no commitment or obligation to you. But people often
Yeah.
forget that that commitment also involves that child, not necessarily. And then
Yes.
they pawn each other. They use that as kind of like a negative connotation in each other's life. And I think that's where the relationship it starts to get really complex and dirty. Like, and I want to say
Yeah.
that's why the taboo of Black fathers in household has come into the conversation of even us as Black community and also our outer, ethnicity groups, because that's the joke. Like, oh yeah, your mom is a single mom, your dad's not around, we don't see him, he doesn't show up to the, school meetings. That doesn't mean he's absent, it just does not mean that he's as actively involved. And I applaud the men that do
Yeah.
get involved, but I start to realize that it's this kind of like tit for tat mentality that's not mature, but they
Yeah.
can't handle the responsibility of both parties stepping up and being responsible and co-parenting together. Um, yeah, that. What do you think about that?
Thankfully, my child's mom and I, my wife, we're married. I probably should have extended that offer for marriage years and years before I actually did, but my immaturity kept me from doing that. But I will say that I'm lucky not to have gone through that and experienced that. Like some of my friends have, they have, you know, kids, moms who, make it hard for them, and I wouldn't say make it hard for them, but the relationship has just deteriorated so much to where as though they're not on good terms and they need maybe a mediator to even drop the kid off or pick the kid up and things like that. And I knock on wood. I thank God that my situation hasn't been like that. But I mean, I look at it as people who are emotionally hurt and they don't know what else to do as far as maybe expressing that. I don't know, maybe the guy cheated or maybe the girl cheated, and there's just some unresolved feelings. And it's just like, it's hard for them to be able to communicate. But I do think that there are friends of mine who have started off in rocky relationships after they separated from their kid's mom, that over the course of time things have gotten better, but initially in that first year, 2 years, maybe even 3 to 5 years, it's been really, really rough. But some of them, now that the kids are older, 17, 18, it's kind of like they almost best friends damn near. So sometimes when you end off on a real tumultuous situation, it's rough and you can't put those emotions to the side and you just lash out at the person. So, like I said, once again, man, thankfully I haven't gone through anything like that. And now you know, we doing it the right way, hopefully.
Then it makes me piggyback off of this and basically ask you about, do you feel that immediately the financial obligation, if you lack the emotional intelligence to come together, you and your counterpart to basically co-parent, should the courts be involved? And what are your thoughts on actual child support, then playing the financial?
Mm,
Yeah, because it goes into that. And let's be honest, like, if you can't
yeah,
be face to face and have a mutual understanding of what is, required of you as a father and a mother,
yeah,
then it goes bigger. It goes into what's this financial role that you have to play to provide for this child. And women, a lot of women will take it to the courts. They will say, you know what? I don't even want
yeah,
to be bothered with him and his girlfriend. He's moved on. Now I got to move on, and out of spite, sometimes I'm going to be realistic because they lack the emotional intelligence and say, you know what, straight to the courts. And then, you have child support against you for 18 years on a child that, that you now have to basically present financial gains through the court. What are your thoughts on child support being involved?
so as a man, initially when you think of child support, you kind of, you think of, maybe a woman has, put the man on child support. And the first, I guess, reaction to it is kind of like not good. But when you think about the situation, if you're not the custodial parent and you're not helping out in certain manners, like, you are required to pay for what you laid down and made. So like, I don't think you should be able to just skirt away and leave a woman, to do whatever she needs to do, find child care, find a babysitter, get them to school, buy clothes. Um, so I don't think that that is right. So I assume that I guess child support is a necessary evil, but it would be better if they could work something out. But we know that a lot of people are not going to be able to work their own things out. So you do kind of need that mediator.
Mediator, absolutely. And you know what? I honestly, and back in my 20s, I was just a lacking emotional intelligence. I lacked emotional intelligence. So,
Yeah,
I would hear, a
yeah,
girlfriend or a friend of mine go into the whole thing like, girl, he moved on and he with someone else. And I'm like, girl, take his ass to child support. You would say that because, there's no draining
yeah,
the rock. You know what I mean? Like if you come to the fact that you can't even have a phone conversation with somebody, you got to do what you got to do. And sitting there and being like, okay,
yeah,
I got to skim to basically make ends meet. And, I can't afford, Huggies and diapers and milk and formula and
yeah,
all that stuff. It's like this child is going to be affected, this child. But I'm not going to even say that because it was just a response out of, I want to say ignorance to say, take them to child support. There should have been another option to say, well, did you guys sit down and map this out and try to see exactly where you guys can meet each other in the middle financially and, have that open dialogue to say what is required and what it is. But that's now my emotional intelligence as a 40-plus-year-old woman. But back in my 20s, I'm like, do what you got to do, girl. Like, it's
yeah,
unfortunate, but
yeah,
and that is a negative. It is a very negative connotation. If we sat down and we were having, honest dialogue with each other, we put ourselves as a generation, actually, as, a community in the eyesight of the
hmm,
and other races because of that. Because,
yeah,
oh, what is he on child support? But you don't really see that in other ethnic groups where that is used as a method and means to like, provide and take care of your child. You think about the Beckys out there. The Beckys out there, like, well, I met with
yeah,
Paul, and Paul is basically going to be responsible for blank. And you're like, oh wow, y'all agreed? Like y'all were adults and had
yeah,
conversations so you
exactly.
agree. That's the kind of
Yeah.
thing that's unfortunate, but we did a disservice
But
to
I'm saying I'm
our
I'm gonna push back on that a little bit. And
please.
because like a lot of times we say or we hear that the other people they don't do some of the same things that we do. And I feel like it's kind of a human nature when you take the color away from it. Obviously I'm a black man. I can never look at things without the lens of color because the world sees me as a black man no matter what I do. But I do feel like shit, some of the same things we out here doing is some of the same things that they doing. So you may have a mother or a father who trying to be slick and do this and get extra and get over, they doing it the same way. You know what I mean? They doing it the same way. And they just like we have our struggles, they had their struggles too. So I just wanted to put a little bit of pushback on to
No.
say that the
And
Becky
now I
may
want to
not do
argue
it.
that.
Shit, Becky Becky out here trying to come up too. It's not just Rashida or Tamika now. You know what I mean?
It's
So
true. It's
we gotta
true.
keep that a little bit funky.
But then I have a question for you. Why is it known in our
Yeah,
group that that's a common theme, but it's not known to those
yeah,
Becky's? Think about it, because when you hear something like that, and even when you look at the marketing in media,
yeah.
they have the single black woman, holding the baby carrier by herself on a box. But you see,
I
Becky and
I
Paul
think
when it
that's by
comes all the
design.
time. Yeah, by
I
design,
think that's by
exactly. But that's what they're
yeah,
shoving down everybody's throat because the world is watching. And no matter what, you
exactly.
say that. You can say Becky's trying to come up, but that's not what they're marketing. They're marketing that Rashida is out here solo
Yeah.
without a father. That's
And
why I
so,
say, no,
but that's the key to it though. That's by design. I feel like, you want to take from our culture, you want to, diminish us and have us look in a certain way while you capitalizing off our dollars. You want to say we poor, but yet, your biggest brands is getting rich off us. So like two things can't be true. And so I feel like they market that to us, but even if you look at welfare statistics and all of that, like I don't have them in front of me, but they would have you to believe that it's only us that's on welfare. But if you look across America, America is a very big place. And it's more of them in America than it is us. And we not the main ones or the only ones that's on welfare. And so I think it's just like a marketing scheme. They don't want us to realize our true self. So when you put certain images out to the kids and beyond, they come up thinking that that's what they are. and so
Yes.
it kind of lowers the standard. And I think it's just all a well thought out marketing tool. That's all.
You know, that's very true. What's in the media is what is brought to the forefront. So, it's
Yeah.
the story that's told. And you're right,
Mhm.
100%. They don't want it to be known. They want to put us and portray us in a different light. So I applaud you for standing
Exactly.
up and fighting that again a little bit because it's true, but it's also not
Yeah.
true because that's not what they're showing. That's not what they show in the world. So it's like, you can only
Yeah.
believe what you see because a lot of people go based on what they see,
Yeah.
not based on
Because
good.
reality is the perception.
Exactly, 1000%. I was going to say that unless you sit down like you and I, because we know we do our homework and we both intelligent
Yeah.
individuals, we're going to go click that button and make sure that we check the statistics in that. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't do. They just be like, oh yeah, because everybody's going through it, so I'm going to go do the same thing. And I'm like, I've never been a follower. I've always been a leader. So I want to go and do my
Yeah.
own homework and come back with my own assessment. But even with that said, I'm like, even when I looked at the statistics, I'm like, okay, so there's more Pauls in the household, but why is that? And I think it's because of the
Yeah.
co-parenting dynamic. And that's what I wanted to delve into next. Do you think that it is
Yeah.
honestly, and I'm going to just truthfully, do we think that Black men and women can co-parent without the effects of negative connotation?
Well, I believe that any relationship is going to have its negativity towards it, but you got to try to push through the negativity part and just hopefully it's going to be more positive days. Like I feel like from me to my wife, me to my cousin, me to my boss, me to a coworker, I may come to work one day and I may, I may not be feeling good. I'm not gonna give him that energy. He may you see me in the morning, hey, what's up, Joe? Like, you ain't speaking to me. He may take that and feel a type of way. Every day is not the same. So I feel like you're gonna have those negatives, you're gonna have those positive. We're human, like everything is dynamic. It's not gonna be the same way all the time. So I just think that that's life. You're gonna have negative aspects to it. But like I said, if that's your person, you want those negative aspects to be fewer and far in between than the positive stuff.
Great. Do you, how do you think we can change the relationship dynamic between men and women so that way our children aren't affected? Because think about that. We're raising our future, right? So if you look at each child, and
Yeah.
my children are, I want to say 19 through 25 at this stage. They're
Okay.
already want to tell I will always say to them, you're raised, but you're not an adult until I actually release you to this world to allow you to be the adult that you need to be because
Yeah.
as children they're still in my home, one, so they don't have the
Hmm.
responsibility of bills and what may come with it if they don't pay something, a light go off, or a bill's not paid.
Yeah.
They don't have that understanding yet, but I know that their influence is heavily on the me and my counterpart in what we've done and what we've done to raise them. But what do you think that we can do as a society to make it better for our children so that way they have more of a positive influence in their upbringing for their mother and father when they're not together and if they are together? And then I would love to hear even what you practice so that way when your boys are like, a part of your day to day with your wife, like how do you
Hmm.
guys make that positive experience for them to know mommy and daddy are equally responsible for your livelihood and your role in living,
So I think in order for you to, I guess, show happiness or try to instill that with discipline and all of that stuff too, I think you have to be happy yourself. Like you got to work on yourself too, because yeah, you in a relationship with a person, but you also are individuals as well. And I think that it's important for you to uphold that individualism just as well as you upholding a relationship. When you're dealing with your children and everything, I don't know. I think it's important to lead with love. I think it's important to establish that connection with the person before you just have a kid with them. I know that's like all the time that we have children is not it's not planned all the time because even myself when I was younger, like I was getting busy. I was out here. I thought I was a player. I thought I was doing this. Fortunately, I didn't have children when I was moving in that way, and I did wait until I got a little bit older and a little bit more stable and things of that nature. But I think that's one of the main things that we need to do. We need to find love with that person instead of just having maybe like a oops baby or something like that. We need to get married. We need to show the children that that's the way. We need to show them the love from both parents. The way that she loves on them may not be the way that I love on them. You know what I mean? When they want breakfast in the morning, she may cut up their little eggs and nice little what's the name of this, that, and the third. The way I may love on them, it may be something totally different. And so I think you need both of that. You need that balance, but you need both parents working together. Of course, y'all not going to have all of the same ideals, but it's really important that y'all have at least close the most foundational ideals together. So y'all working together to give them basically the same message. Like if I want to celebrate Christmas and she don't, or if I want to whoop them and she don't, then that can cause issue. Like, did y'all even talk about that before y'all had kids? So like a lot of times those things don't happen. So we don't even know how to lead together because we didn't even discuss that. So I don't know. I just feel like there are multiple ways, but I think love should be like at the top of that. Like make sure you love the person that you with. Like get married to that person. Show them that stable home. Like and then maybe when they get older, they can do the same thing too. So I think we got to start with that.
And I love the fact that you said leave with love, because a lot of people leave that out, or they use that word love with a hidden, agenda.
Yeah.
A lot of people use that word love to manipulate. I actually talked about that earlier, like on one of my stories. I was saying how, when people want to possess you, sometimes they use that word to
Yeah.
manipulate. They don't necessarily want that love. So they don't know how to do that. And so a lot of people that have not been loved don't know what that looks like. So you don't know or how to
Yeah.
identify if that's genuine, especially when you come from a broken
Yeah.
home. So yeah, I love the fact that you said lead with love, but it has to be genuine love. In addition to that,
But so let me ask you this question.
sure, yes, please.
Let me ask you this question. And so when I was coming up, and this is why I say that the older generation was a lot different from this generation.
Yeah.
I didn't really hear I love you much at all when I was young. I didn't hear that. Like I knew that they loved me. They bought me clothes, they bought me sneakers, they fed me, they kept me clean, they kept the roof over my head, but I didn't hear like Joseph, I love you. I try to get that to my kids, but what do you feel about I and I can't just say only women are more openly expressing that, but I do feel like it's more from a woman's standpoint, and like the older generation didn't really lead with that. But I think that's a part of the things that can change also too, like expressing it and showing it.
Yeah.
I don't think they did that a lot
Yeah,
from
so I was
past
I was gonna
generations.
say, yeah, I agree with that statement. They didn't do it a lot because their parents were hard on them. And you look at the era where they came from, when you're just trying to survive and make it to the next day.
Yeah,
It's a little bit of a difference there. That was a lot of struggle back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. So by the time my mom,
yeah,
procreated and had children, she expressed the same way. She's just trying to survive from day to day, her and my dad. I didn't hear I love you a lot. And it's kind of crazy because I knew there was love there because they kept me fed, they kept me, clothed. I would go to school and hear other kids' situations. I'm like, well, I don't go through that, thank God. And, so that was
yeah,
the only comparison as a child is the fact that, I'm not getting beat in the hallway, you know what I mean? Or I'm not getting
yeah,
impressed of like violence or having like a bruise on me, a black eye, or I didn't. And as a child, you don't appreciate those things, but you knew there was love there because you had the discipline, but you also had the sternness and you had the things that you needed to live. But I didn't hear I love
mhm,
you. And then in turn, and even from my mother or father, but in turn, once I had children, I did not become the nurturer in that regard. I was more so like, let me be the provider.
mm,
I'm going to do the same thing my mom did because my mom and dad did because I survived it. You know what I mean? I turned out perfectly fine.
yeah,
I never blamed them
yeah,
for the words of I love you not being said in the household because I was like, oh, they've kept a roof over my head. I was never homeless. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
that was so small
Okay.
thing us in life. But I hear my children now say to me, well, you didn't say I love you and you didn't hug us. And I'm like, well, you needed that. I ain't need that. I was fine as long as I had my sneakers and my
Yeah,
kicks and my clothes on, and I was able to eat every day.
yeah,
I went in the refrigerator; it was never empty. That was enough for me. But I guess for now,
yeah,
what they're teaching the children nowadays is that the emotional intelligence component of life, and they're like, "Well, you don't say I love you," and I'm like, I gotta say that. You mean this light switch when I turn it on and off? That wasn't proof of love. Like, and they're
Yeah.
like, no, you got to say it. You got to hug me. You got to show me that. And I have three daughters and one son. And even it's crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my dynamic. But it's like, even from my daughters, they say it more than my son does. And I'm like, did I hug my son? And did
Yeah.
I get to hug my daughters? Because you think about the,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say this. When you have a black son, it's different from when you have a black daughter. And I'm gonna say,
Okay.
this is my reality. I learned this based on my living, that black women can step out in America, be successful, business, school, because they have a softness to them and people play off of that. They accept them more and easier. But my son is going to go out here in this
Yeah.
world and he's going to get kicked down and he's going to get rejected and he's going to have more. So I would be more softer to my son, I guess I want to say, than I would
Hmm.
be my daughters. My daughters, I held
Yeah.
stern, because I knew you guys got to do this, you got to do that. But then with my son,
So
I'm like,
is it because you felt as though they needed to to show that toughness in the world?
for my son and my daughter in different ways. Yes. So I wasn't soft to my daughters, but I was soft to my son. And they point that out to me. I never looked at it that way. I'm like, what you talking about? They're like, yeah, you told Tyler have a great day and gave him a hug and a kiss and blah blah. I'm like, what? I
Yeah.
did that. And they're like, yeah, you even say something like, ain't nothing like a Tyler hug. And I'm like, oh, like, man. And I'm like, I guess
Yeah.
I'm also acting as a protector of him because black men are looked upon as, this conversation went so well. But but like, think about it.
Yeah.
Like, the black man in the world is looked upon as a threat. So I'm not sending my 6'4", 25-year-old son out there knowing he's against the world. He's gonna know if mama has my back, or she's gonna come and she's gonna
Yeah.
support me. She's gonna know, like, I know that I'm loved by her. And it's kind of crazy. I
Yeah.
didn't do it as much for my daughters. I don't know why. I don't know, mother
And
daughter.
so
I don't know. It's such a weird
yeah,
statement to make, but yeah, it was
yeah,
them too. So I think that I also looked at them as they got each other. I don't know why.
yeah.
I don't know
But
why.
and it's wild that you say that because
Yeah,
as you talking, like I look at it and I see like that's why I don't really like the gender wars really too much like that on social media because I feel like it's whack. But when I
yeah,
look at how black women are looked at in the world, it's not really painted in a necessarily good light. So they looking at them like they super strong, they super rough and tough, but
yeah.
nah, they need protection too.
And they
Yeah,
do,
they
and
need
they do. And
protection
I
too.
think
So yeah,
that's the part that maybe I felt them in. And I have that honest conversation with myself. It's called
yeah,
self-reflection. And I say it when my daughters come up here and they tell me, they're like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'll throw some money your way. I'll get you there and back. Like, it's kind of funny how my mentality
yeah,
with them. I'm like, okay, I'll help you to an extent, but I'm definitely not going to do it for you. But if my son came in here and be like, oh, this, that, I'm like, let me show you. And I'm holding his hand all the way to the finish line. It's kind of crazy, but
yeah,
dynamic of of what how I am with my children. But yeah, maybe I need to change that. Maybe I
mhm,
need to start looking at it from a different lens and saying, let me delve this into more, I think also too, oh, you know what? I do know why. Because the fathers, and I'm gonna say it for my counterpart, his daughters is daddy's little girl. They get whatever they want. He folds for them so fast.
yeah,
And I'm like, and for my son, he's
yeah.
so hard on him. And then for me, I'm like, oh, and I'm soft on my son, but hard on the girls.
That's a
So I
dynamic
think
too, though. That's definitely
balance. When you said
dynamic.
balance,
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is. Is that balance? Is that dynamic? And I'm like, I never forget the first time. I think my son was like 8 years old, and he came in the room and said, "Mom, blah blah blah." And my husband went in on him. He's like, "Let me tell you, as a young black man, you need to go downstairs and toughen yourself." And I was like looking at him like, "I'm gonna give him a hug later when he,"
yeah.
you know. And no lie,
And we
yeah,
and we do that at the same time too
yeah,
because my youngest, he has his little things that he going through, and mom should get after him. Mom should really get after him, but she's also going to baby him too. And I'm just like, I'm looking at him and I'm like, I know he's a kid and I know he's developing, but I also look at it like I know what he's gonna face out there when he gets,
yes,
to be my size. I know
yes,
how they gonna be looking at him. And
yeah,
so, my worry is, damn, I want you to be right. So it's not me being hard on you just because I don't like you. Nah, I'm being hard on you because I know that they're gonna be harder on you out there. And if you're not
yeah,
prepared
yeah,
and you move in a certain way, you're gonna get clipped. And so it's that, like you said, it's that balance, and you wrestle with it in your mind. It's like, I'm like, man, I should have done this 20 years ago because this shit ain't good for my heart right now, man. But yeah, it's a little
It took
rough.
me, I went full circle to discuss it. And I'm like, I'm harder on my girls. Like, it is what it is. But I'm like, in the reality, I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, I think about how he is with my son. I'm like, oh, yeah, he's tough on him. And I'm like, so it's an even balance. I'm
exactly.
like, my daughters come through and they have him eating out the palm of their hand. What do you girls need?
Exactly.
On my way. And I'm like, why are you leaving to go help them? They adults. They 20 years old. They should be able to figure it out. I left home at 18.
Uh-huh.
I go into my whole speech. And he be looking at me like, and let Tyler come here and ask for 5 cents. You're gonna be like, oh, here, this, that, and the third. Let me walk you to the bank to get it. And I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Oh yeah.
So it is the balance.
That's what they say about the girl dads though.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm like, there you go. So I now understand it. I'm like, yeah, you just gave me that perspective too. You're like, oh yeah, you do both do
Mhm.
the same thing, play it off. But I'm like, that's how you gotta be. Um,
Exactly.
what are your thoughts when I tell you in 2023, 47.5% of Black children live without a resident father in the household?
Mhm.
47.5. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah,
That's terrible.
yeah.
That's that's you might as well say that's half, 47%.
That's
It's 50
exactly what I
50.
was about to say. Yep, exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's horrible, man. I think from that standpoint, we definitely got to do better. We definitely got to do better. Yeah, that shit is horrible.
That's exactly what my thought was. And not only that is just horrible.
Because
Then what's their influence as a Black man, and how do men and how do the
yeah,
little boys and little girls that grow up without their fathers in the household, how do they step out in this world and feel safe? That's immediately what my mindset went to.
I think it's the influence of outside, and not all of those families are in the city, you know, uh, street neighborhoods and things of that nature. Because that's for a number that big, you got that. That's all across all social
America.
backgrounds.
Yes, yeah.
Um, from the burbs to the hoods, and so I just think it lends more of the mom having a rougher job, having to try to play both roles. And, some of these moms out here, they doing an amazing job, but that's not a job for one person.
Right.
I mean,
Absolutely.
it take a village. It take a
Absolutely.
village. You know, me and my wife, we have, so like my mom, she's not as hands-on. She's up in age. Her mom is not as hands-on. She's getting up in age. And so like it takes a village. We struggling as a two-parent home. So you can imagine what a one-parent home will be doing. And so yeah, for these dudes that's out there, man, that's sucker shit, man. That's all I can say, man. That's
Yeah.
sucker shit. Like you having these babies and
Really.
you leaving on them, like you're a sucker. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You loyal to your barber. You won't go to another barber and get a haircut from another barber and shit, but
Yep.
you not even being there with your kids and shit. Like that's corny shit. Like that's the real corny shit. They
Yeah.
talk about Russell Wilson all the time, like he's a corny dude.
Yep.
Nah, he stepped up, just like you said, as a stepfather to
Yes.
another, man, son. He loved the woman. He's doing what he doing for that woman. But here we are as a community, we gonna ridicule the man and call him this and call him that. Like, why is he that? Like, he loved that woman. So I was told a long time ago, if you want to be with a woman, that's a package deal. Them kids come with that woman too. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
the people that I know, we all in our sons' lives and our daughters' lives and things of that nature.
Yeah.
My cousin told me this one time, and he doesn't actually stay with his kid's mom, but he's definitely, influential in his children's lives. He gets them, every weekend. He's there for, fights,
Mm,
financially and all of that thing. He just is not the custodial parent.
mm,
But, he told me, this was a little while ago that he don't want to be no weekend daddy. And like I had never even heard that saying before.
right. Yeah, that's
But
good. statement right there.
Yo, that shit true as hell. That shit true as
Yeah.
hell.
I
Like
never looked
I
at it
want to
like
see
that.
mine
Wow.
grow up. I want to,
Weekend daddy.
yeah. And he's actually doing, what he is doing is just that him and the mom did not work out, and so they're
Mhm.
not together. But it's still hurting him not to be, seeing his kids every day,
Yeah, yeah,
like to have them in the next room over and sleep. Like,
yeah.
but yeah,
Hard. I'm gonna tell you why in 1973 it dropped tremendously. And it's something that we talked about earlier where you said perception, right? And you said the media thing, and we see what we want to see. But they put programs in place in 1973, the housing market. So in order for you to get free housing, and welfare
mm,
programs, they basically
okay,
said no men in the household, not just black men,
yeah,
but no men in the
yeah,
household. If you needed financial aid, there was a social worker that came to your house, inspected any of your items that was
mm,
there. They went through everything. They had
yeah,
to show proof that there was no man in the household, and it basically forced the black man and the man out of the household. So you saw the numbers drop drastically in 1973 based on the fact that they moved them out of the household so that way you can receive this free aid and free day. And I think that
yeah,
that 47% plays a huge role on the fact that they've now, since those programs been in place in 1973, where you just could get it and ride a free ride without any type of repercussions or anything. Since that time
mm,
frame, they've now put programs in place to actually train the woman of the household so she could go out there and get a job, and I think that's why the number increased from 23% to 47%. Think about that's almost half of that number to 47%, because now
yeah,
you can move your black man in your household, get off of this government assistant program, and then get the actual proper training you need, if not college or something else to basically financially, kind of cover, you learning a new trade or new scopes of work or like new, I want to say some education. So I think that
yeah,
they put something in place, it diminished the men in the household, and then they put something in place to correct the previous programs that they set up, because they were like, now we see that everything, and that, think about that from a budget perspective. You think about how much money, how much $1 trillion of debt, the United States is in. That plays a part of that number. So now how do we reverse that? We
yeah,
now have to get these women that they put on welfare since 1973, get men back into the household and give them the programs that they need so they can learn a trade and then go to a job and sit down and be able to
yeah.
show that they have some type of worth of it. But that's what we saw happen from 1973 to 1995 to 2023. So that's the history of the black men in a household from year to year for those decades that you see a transition from 1973 to 1995 and then 2023, and you see it
Yeah.
increase with each 20. Think about that's 20-year difference within that they took that.
Each 20-year gap. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, they put things in place to reverse that in the government so that way they were able to see, oh, the cause and effect when we do have these programs and they, take advantage of it versus when they have to now remove us. And I don't want to say forcefully,
Yeah.
but I used to hear, and I used to be in rooms where I would hear someone say, oh yeah, and they're gonna force me to go to a program, and I don't know why I gotta go to this program, because they want to get you off that program. You've been on it for how long? How old is that child now? 10, 12-year-old child,
Yeah.
you shouldn't have been on a program for 12 years. It wasn't designed for you to be on it for 12 years. It was designed so you can help you out in the beginning. But since you remove the black men out of the household, the fathers out of the household, now we have this cause and effect where you're just now leaning on this program. And, we caused this deficit that now we now have to go and say, now, how do we reverse this? So that's what the transition from 20-year gaps that they actually put in play.
Okay.
And I also want to talk to you about single fathers. 1990, 472,000 Black fathers were single raising their children, which is huge. And I applaud them for that. But do you want to hear how much it grew since then to 2023? 1.18 million Black fathers that are single raising their children. And I'm like, that is phenomenal. So
Yeah.
that 47.5% that the children don't live without, you think about the difference of that. Some Black fathers are out here single handedly raising their children, nurturing them. They're the person that they wake up to, they're the full time parent of their household. That's phenomenal. That it grew so
Yeah.
much, 472,000 from 1990 to 2023, 1.1 million Black fathers. That's really great.
Yeah.
Really, really great. What you
Yeah.
think about
Shit.
that?
That's Yeah, that's a stark difference. But damn, it's like I would be curious to see on the other end of the spectrum how big the gap is from, single fathers and single mothers and things of that nature. But like I said, I do think we in a different time where, fathers are being a lot more hands-on in this day and age. I don't think it's
Mm,
just like, back in the day, it's like, all
mm.
right, I'm gonna be a provider and, I don't care what's going on with that baby, so to speak. Not in action. I mean, not in words, but by in
I get it.
action. You
Yeah,
know what I
yeah, yeah.
mean? And yeah, dads is being a lot more hands on, man. You should see it when I go to these football games and these basketball games, and you see these dads out here, man. So yeah, I'm definitely seeing the dads being a lot more hands on, and it's a beautiful thing.
It
It
is. It
really
is.
is.
That's that 1.1 million right there. They're like, if I can and we just
Yeah,
gotta handle this
yeah.
situation, just give me my baby and I'll step up and do what I gotta do for it.
But
Not
that's
I feel
another
like that.
thing too that I do feel like that's an option that I feel like a lot more men probably need to explore. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Because what traditionally women do it all the time,
mm.
and the numbers aren't as high with the men, but I see they are increasing, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, I hope that by 2025, when they take these numbers, or 2040, when they do this, survey again, that it increases even more. So I think fathers in a household is tremendous. I tell people all the time, I got the
Yeah.
confidence of a God because my father was in my life, and my father's still currently in my life. I tell people all the time, I'm never crying over a man. You'll never see it because I already have one man in my corner, and I know that he's going to be, even on his deathbed, he will
Now,
for me.
is
It's
that just like a
something.
metaphor that we? Is that a metaphor that you just saying? You gonna never cry over a man? Saying, come on, Ty. Like you can't
No,
be that hard. Like you
so
ain't gonna
no,
never
not
cry.
hard, not hard, but I gotta tell you, I gotta give you this story, right? In order for you to get the context. I never forget it, right? So I was
Yeah.
in my house and something happened and an argument ensued. And I think like, sometimes people say things they want to break you, right? And you're like, nah,
Yeah.
I'm good. Like, because immediately I'm like, my father from day one, you're a beautiful young woman. You could do whatever you want. Sky's the limit for you. He was my cheerleader. He was always in my corner, like, go girl, go. And I'm like, dad, I'm good. But he gave me that confidence. He made me feel secure. Like, so he made me feel that I never needed another man's validation to be who I am. And sometimes,
Yeah.
in life when you hear your mate, go against you and you're like, well, you know what? I heard what you said. I respect your opinion, but I'm gonna go with this and see what happened. And it will only be because,
Yeah.
I had that confidence that my father gave me. He put a battery in my back. I tell him all the time, don't be trying to take my battery off my back, Dad. But he gave me that confidence to face the world. He did. He gave me the confidence to face the world. That's why I know Black fathers are important, especially in little girls and little boys' lives, because that was the start. That was the first time someone ever gave me the impression that I'm untouchable and I am, invincible, not invincible, because I know death is, can hit anybody. But he gave me
Yeah.
that security blanket and that assurance that even if I do make a decision, it could either
Yeah.
make or break me, but it's my choice. It's my decision. He gave me that confidence. That's why I know Black fathers are important in the household, because I'm like,
Exactly.
it's kind of crazy. If I told you my story, Joe Pro, you'd be like, what in the world? Like you would be like, because I've been a wife, I've been divorced, I've been, single, I've been, you've lived your life and you're just like, okay, that what's good
Yeah.
for the goose isn't good for the gander. You live, you experience things, but nothing stops me from calling my dad and be like, yeah, I'm gonna check this out and see what happened. And he go ahead, give
Yeah.
it a shot. Long as I have that man backing me, and even when he's not around, I tell him all the time, I'm like, I couldn't get you on the phone, but I heard your voice. Like, tell me, put my, big panties on and handle it. Like, do what you gotta do as a woman. But don't call me, crying
Yeah.
about it, whatever. You made the choice, you live with it, and you gotta deal with it. If it goes good, then you roll with that. If it goes bad, you better wipe those tears and keep it pushing. I never forget, he was the hardest
Exactly.
but the honest person that I had in my life. And I never forget, a dude told me, my ex told me
Hmm.
this once. He said, oh, it don't matter. You'll just call your father. And I'm like,
Mm.
facts. Because I'm like, facts. Because what you say to me is what you say to me. You're a person in my life, but I know my father was here forever. Like, my father, well, he's going to be here
Ex-
forever. But he's going to be here.
exactly.
He's here and he's going to tell me. And I'm like, sometimes your mate don't, especially knowing relationships and how finicky they be, they can be.
Exactly.
your mate not may not have what the best interest for you at the moment is, and sometimes it
Mm,
may be based
mhm.
on some type of, I want to say, jealousy, or some type of, oh well, she thinks she's gonna get ahead, and I'm gonna try to like put her in her place. I'm sorry, some
Yeah.
relationships are like that. Some men and women relationships are like that, and I'm like, I could just hear my dad playing in the background, like, nah, go the opposite
And
direction,
so
you know.
that's a crazy dynamic. So what do you feel about the jealousy from a parent to a child?
Yeah, you should never be jealous of
I
your child. To me,
but that's what I'm saying. This is a phenomenon that I wasn't even aware of, but it's out here. Okay. Yeah, I was just saying that you actually have parents who are actually in real life competition with their children. Like, and not no healthy competition either.
that's crazy. That's madness to me. I think that your
Yeah.
child is a replication of you. Like there's like, why would you be jealous of yourself? Like I think of that. Like my kids, my daughters, even though I'm harder on them, they're still replicas of me. That's how I know that they're going to be powerful when they step out in this world. That's why I know I gave them the
Yeah.
same confidence. I'm like, girl, you better go get it. You know, if I could push you myself, I would
Hmm.
like jump to it. Like, but I'm to be jealous. I think that's lacking, like, maturity. If you look at your child and you're like,
Yeah.
not their hair
Yeah.
is longer, oh, they're prettier than me, or I don't like their shape, or whatever the case, then you're just basically self-reflecting. You're projecting your negative, feelings about yourself on your kid. And that's terrible. Like your kid is a clone of
And
you. Like
I
that's
wasn't
crazy.
even aware of that going
Yeah,
on out here, but and somebody brought it up to me, and yeah,
that's
it's a
crazy.
thing. It's really it's a real life phenomenon.
Thank you guys so much for joining us in this discussion. We was a great discussion. I loved our actual conversation and how it flowed. Again, family dynamics, and Black men in the household. Like, what was your thoughts? We'd love to hear from you. Like, share, subscribe. Make sure that you check out Joe Pro's web pages. He's JoePro973. I'm going to make sure his handle is listed there so you can just reach out to him. If you want him to join your podcast, edit some videos, you'll have his information. Thank you, Joe, so much for joining me. I really appreciate you. It's a blessing seeing you. I'm so happy to see your growth. Great job.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Ty. I really do
Thank you.
appreciate you. And this platform is awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to say that this was a excellent time, and I want y'all to make sure y'all comment below if I probably said something that was crazy or unheard of to you. Make sure you subscribe to the Grown Up Group.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Have a good one. Bye,
All
guys.
right, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Peace.